Hello, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and this is a video interview with Michael Jackson. And this is video number 3. And we've got 30 questions. We're up to question number 10. So question number 10 says, do you still visit Disney World? Have you ever met Walt Disney? What is he like? Is he happy with the changes over the years? So first of all, before Michael answers it, before I answer it as Michael, what do you know about Disney World, and what do you know about me visiting Disney World, and what do you know about my happiness with Disney World? What have you heard, Crystal?
So I know that you like Peter Pan, and you see yourself as Peter Pan, and he's my favorite character too. So that's what I know about your happiness with Disney. You used to visit the Disneyland Hotel a lot, and I think you had your own private room where you could just visit, and then you would go on rides as much as anybody else would. And sometimes I think people did visit your hotel room. Like, I forgot what hotel it was. And I think that is still there in your name. And you really like Disney. You were just so. I think that's the reason why you made Neverland in the first place. I think you were inspired by Disney to do that. And you liked Pinocchio. You liked I also heard that you tried to compose music for The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I found out about that last year, and then that project just didn't happen, unfortunately. So that's what I remember.
Okay, so I did like the world of Disney. I liked how they made films for children, and I've actually had children with me, and we've watched Disney films. I think Disney was really gifted. Walt Disney was really gifted with the way that he made films, and it was particularly appealing to children. Bit concerned these days with the direction Disney has with gay characters and transsexual characters, and the sort of woke sort of attitude that they've gone on. I don't believe Walt would have desired that for his company, but you can see that modern companies do what the world is doing. I have met Walt in heaven, and I've discussed things, and heaven's pretty big, and there's a lot of people to meet. So we've had some discussions, but I'm not particularly close to him because he's got a whole lot of group of other friends that he spends time with. But they play Disney movies, that the innocent ones, children's movies in heaven, and children watch Disney in heaven. You may be interested in that. Disney actually, I realized since I died that Disney bought out Pixar, which Steve Jobs had an animation company, and Disney bought Pixar out, and that was a good acquisition that I watched, because Pixar was very good at making film. They actually made Toy Story. I really like that, and I've liked.
Oh my gosh!
I like every film that Pixar made, and I follow children's films. It's just a bit concerning that Disney has gone woke, and you can't really trust them to be playing proper Christian content anymore, and they seem to be catering to the world more often these days. And the actual the themes in films and the themes in TV shows are actually influencing children, and there's so many more children as young teens identifying as gay and bisexual these days. probably influenced by the media that they're watching. It's changed, and it's never been like this, and it's such high incidences with that. So when you say, "Am I happy with the changes over the years?" I'm not particularly happy with the modern Disney, and I really don't approve of most of their films, and so they don't show certain films of Disney in heaven anymore, the later films, but it was very much part of my life, and I certainly loved everything to do with children and the innocence of children, and so that's what I have to say. What do you have any comment on that?
I'm really surprised that you brought up Toy Story. Were you alive when you watched Toy Story, or was this later in life that you watched it? Because Toy Story came out in like the early 2000s. I was a kid, and you know, I remember when Toy Story first came into theaters, so I'm surprised you brought it up. I never heard you speaking about Toy Story and Pixar.
Yeah, Steve Jobs started Pixar when he was sacked as a CEO from Apple, and he went and started another computer company, and he started Pixar. And Pixar has got a spirit of excellence about it that Steve Jobs had, and they had a board room that gives constructive criticism to the films that are in progress, and they play the films that are being made at different levels of their progress. And the board meets and does constructive criticism on the film, and they go back and make the changes and edit the films. And in Hollywood, it's almost impossible to predict a best-selling film. It's almost impossible for Hollywood to get a best-selling film, and they certainly don't know in advance. But Pixar, as a film studio, got 20. Last time Matthew read the book, that had 20 best-selling films. Every one of their films has been a hit, and you can take it back to that boardroom, improving the films as they go along. Steve Jobs wasn't allowed into that boardroom that gave constructive criticism. He was too critical, and they didn't like his influence in there. So he started the company, but he wasn't allowed in that important decision-making room. So that just testifies to his character. I've met Steve Jobs in heaven, and I've talked to him multiple times, and he's doing really well. So that's what I have to say about children's films. I'm not happy with the direction Disney is going in, and all these woke companies on Earth. I understand if you're listening to this. I understand if you feel that you've got homosexual orientation, and understand if you've grown up and all you've ever been attracted to are males and you're a male. I can understand the homosexual relationship, but it's not just because I'm a Christian. It's not just because I'm in heaven, but the Bible speaks against male and males being together, and female, and you can't rip that out of the Bible. It's actually there. You can end up in heaven if you're gay. God understands when we've got addictions and lifestyles that aren't good, and God weighs the heart, like we shared in the sheep and the goats parable. He weighs the heart of people. He understands if you're doing something that you just can't help yourself, and he understands sin and stuff. But for people to be making films to push that, to say that it's a totally acceptable lifestyle, and you can choose to do that, it's going beyond what is the scope of what a children's film is all about. So that's what I have to say about that.
this is not even a question they put in the question of questions. So what is your favorite Disney film?
He can't answer that because Matthew hasn't got a good understanding of all the Disney films. That's something you can ask me in private, in your own head. And Matthew hasn't got the faith to speak a Disney film, and Matthew doesn't know enough Disney films to actually name one. So if Matthew had about 20 Disney films in his mind and he knew 20 names, I could direct him to which one, but Matthew wouldn't be able to name even one. There was one about a mermaid or whatever.
Little Mermaid?
Yeah, that's the one that came up to his mind. So perhaps that may be the film, but he doesn't remember the name of so many Disney films. So if you feel like a resonance in your heart, if you feel like an agreement with your own mind, that could be it. It possibly could be it, but you'd have to feel that in your own heart that was brought to Matthew's mind for a reason.
Well, like with you loving Disney, I would have loved to go to Disney with you because I'm a Disney fan myself. And the fact that you talked to Disney before you answer my question, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It's kind of what?
It's kind of mind-blowing that you have met Disney in heaven.
Yeah.
And that you sort of answered the question on that. And I'm surprised that Steve Jobs was even a part of Disney. I never knew that. I didn't know that he was the guy that
Steve Jobs wasn't part of Disney. Steve Jobs started a production company called Pixar that made animating, but Disney bought that company. Disney took over that company.
Oh, I thought they were the same company.
No, it's called Disney Pixar or Pixar Disney, but it's a production company that's still run by Pixar, but Disney owns it now.
I understand. You have a lot of knowledge about Disney. But I would have loved to go to Disney with you because I just love Disney myself. I went to Disneyland last year before I visited Forest Lawn because I was thinking of you as I was going to Disneyland. So I was just, happy to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's apparently Walt Disney, Matthew heard before that Walt Disney used to come up with ideas for a business, and he used to ask his friends, and he'd get talked out of his ideas and he wouldn't go ahead with his ideas. And he talked to someone that was smart one time, and the person that was smart one time said, next time you get an idea, share it with your 10 friends. And if 9 out of 10 of your friends say, don't do it, well, go ahead and do it, because most people aren't successful. And so his next idea was Disneyland. And so 9 out of 10 people said, don't do it. And so he did it.
I don't know if you knew this about Walt, but he used to collect trains, and he actually built a train before Disneyland even was a thing, which was something interesting I learned about him.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so we'll go on to question 11. So question 11 was an insightful question. Did you attend your own funeral? And so what do you think, Crystal? Do you think that I came down from heaven, a week or however long after I died was my funeral? Do you think that I spent a week in heaven and then came down to my funeral?
I've heard of people seeing their own funeral, so I think it's possible that you might have seen your own funeral.
Yeah, it's exactly right. A lot of people who die and go to heaven come and witness their funeral and witness the people that arrived and can see what the people are dressed in, and they can come and walk through the audience and hear the thoughts of the people who are their friends and family, and they can hear the thoughts of what people are thinking. They can stand there and watch the people give the eulogies and give the speeches. They can watch the whole proceedings. So while people are looking at a coffin and seeing a dead body in a coffin, the dead body is actually standing next to the coffin and watching everyone's reactions. And I walked behind my coffin, and I was like speaking to the people that were carrying my coffin. I was speaking into their hearts and bringing them comfort. And people would just imagine that that was their angel speaking to them, but it was me bringing comfort to them, saying, "Don't miss me too much, and everything will be okay. It's okay. I know you're feeling bad now, but things will get better." And they were just having thoughts that I don't know if I'm ever going to cope. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I was able to bring them contrary thoughts and thoughts that were encouraging and uplifting. And I reflected them back to thinking about my life and the good things that happened in my life. And when they was thinking about bad things, about I can't believe he's gone, I was switching their thoughts into thinking good thoughts and good memories of my life and the things that I achieved.
Do you remember your casket being closed? And not an open casket?
Matthew's not aware of everything. The thing is about interviewing a saint is we've got to speak according to the person who's bringing the message intellect. Mediums work differently because mediums work with demonic spirits, and demonic spirits have detailed information about everything. But Matthew's not a medium, so he hasn't got a demonic spirit speaking to him with detailed information. If Matthew was being a medium now and bringing my voice, a demon could inform him, yes, the casket was closed, because the demon knows that. But because Matthew hasn't got knowledge, he's not certainly not going to come through in an interview with a guest saying, yes, it was closed when it wasn't. And people could read the book and say, well, that wasn't really Michael. So because I'm limited with Matthew's intellect, I can't answer that. What did you hear? Did you hear that the coffin was open or closed?
Well, when I first heard about your death before I became a fan, I saw that your casket was closed on TV, and that's probably for privacy reasons, but I don't know if you had your own private funeral or whatever, and it was open before it was on TV. But I remember the casket being closed on TV.
Yeah, well, they normally have a closed casket. Oh, well, it depends on whether they're actually having a separate time for the viewing or they're leaving it open during the service. But that's something you can ask me personally. And if you're one of the fans reading this book because you're attracted to this book, you just ask me. I'm there as you're reading the book now. You can sense my presence. Just ask in your head if you're curious about that. Was the casket ever open or was it closed? And just listen to a thought in your head. And if you hear yes, the casket was open, then that's my answer. But I'm not going to use Matthew's voice to answer, because I don't want him guessing on something and getting it wrong.
Okay, understand.
It's funny. It's really amazing. As Matthew has interviewed saints in the past, he's interviewed about 40 different people from the Bible. It's interesting. If he doesn't know information about the actual saint's life, he can't often get information about it off the saint. He can only work with the information that he knows. So he's going to do a book with Job, the person who wrote the book of Job. He's going to do a book of Job, and he never really does research. But before he does this book of Job, he's going to read the whole book of Job and study it a little bit before he does an interview, because it'll make the interview better with more information in it, because Matthew will have updated information. So if Matthew was a fan and he'd watched TV and followed me more, then he'd have more information for this interview. You understand?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So we're up to verse chapter 12. Why did I meet you in spirit instead of on earth? Well, that's a funny question. Not many people had the opportunity. There's not a lot of fans that really had the opportunity to meet me on earth. And when you're an important figure, you're sort of kept away from people, and you can't go around and meet all of your fans. The reason you should ask, why did you get to meet me in the spirit? Like, out of all the people on earth, why were you chosen to be a person that can write the interview questions and talk to me back and forth over a computer? Why do you think that you were? What's special about you? Why do you think you were uniquely chosen to do this interview? Out of all the people who've watched the videos of Matthew and all the people that have read the Michael Jackson book, why were you the person who responded and wanted to talk to Matthew and made it possible for this interview to happen? Why do you think you were chosen?
I don't know. It's hard to answer. It's just something that happened out of the blue. I'm like, is this man really? I mean, I'm speaking about Matthew. I'm like, is Matthew being legit, or is this just like? But some things he said have been confirmation for me, because, like I said, when I feel you, I start to cry, or like I feel happy, and it's like it's just so strong I cannot even explain it. And I kept telling you that I felt you yesterday, and it was just a weird sensation.
Yeah. Well, weird in the fact that it's unusual, weird in the fact that it was a different sensation, but you'll get used to it over time as I walk with you and I spend time with you, and I talk to you and hang around you and encourage you. You'll get used to me being around, and it won't be so weird. It'll be something natural. I certainly, people in heaven can bilocate. They can be in heaven and be on earth at the same time. So whilst I'm sitting here with Matthew, speaking through him into the computer, I'm actually in heaven, actually putting the final work on one of my songs, and in a recording studio and mixing some sound for one of my songs. So I'm actually doing two things at once. And under spiritual guidelines and spiritual truth, there was a monk. There was a monk or a priest. Matthew's not sure if it's a monk or a priest in the past, Catholic, and he was in three physical locations at the same time. There was testimony of three different countries he was in, and he was doing something with people in the flesh, ministering to people and doing things, but it was in three separate physical locations at once. So it's possible to be in multiple places. So it's possible for me to be sitting here with Matthew's computer and being in your house at the same time, and being at my mixing studio and mixing some music at the same time. It's possible under God's kingdom to be in multiple places. So you were chosen because you were so open to it, and heaven knew that you would reach out and write a comment, and heaven knew Matthew would respond and say, "Why don't we talk on Facebook phone?" And then heaven knew the conversation would get to a stage where you'd write some questions and we'd do an interview. So it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? of course, the chicken was created, and then they started laying eggs, and then the baby chickens would come. But it's like a question like, what comes first? Does a person seek wisdom and then find a master, or is a master there ready to teach students, and the students appear? So, what were you really chosen out of all the people in the world to do this? Yes, you were, but why were you chosen? Because you were open. Many people could have had this opportunity, and when they read this book, they may write to Matthew and want to be someone who interviews Michael, and they may be given the opportunity, but it really comes down to free will and free choice. And so everything has worked out great with you, and you're recognizing my presence, and you overcome with tears last time, and you had the goosebumps on your hands. So there's been enough evidence to the fact that I'm actually in your life and I'm doing stuff. And it's okay for you to doubt and wonder if this is all true and if it's really real. That's a natural thing. Like what possible person in their right mind would think that they're talking to Michael Jackson out of heaven? Like, when you think about it, well, you could run it past 10 of your friends and all think you're crazy, and you are a little bit crazy, and that's why you're interviewing me, because you're a bit crazy, and I was a bit crazy too.
And I'm very open-minded. I'm not just going to, like most people, when they don't believe something, they don't have any evidence of why they don't believe it. They just say, oh, I don't believe it. Like if I told people that you and Matthew are talking to me right now, they would just think that I'm crazy or just, and I'm very spiritual, so that's why I'm so open-minded about everything.
Yeah. So you met me in the spirit, because that made it possible. The same was true when Matthew was watching my last concert, and he was watching it. He hired it from the video store. He's watching a video of it, and then I appeared to him, and he said, "What are you doing here? You're the king of pop." and I said to him, "You're best friends with the King of Kings, and he sent me." And that was a profound answer to him, because Jesus, one day in the future, there's going to be kings ruling each country, and Jesus is going to be the king over all the kings. So that's one of his titles, but it's also something he's going to do. And Jesus, in the position of King of Kings, was able to say that he's my boss. I was the king of pop, but he's the King of Kings. He's the king over all the kings. And so he sent me to earth, and Matthew was a bit overwhelmed that I came into his life, and then it made sense later on when he started to do the interviews with me that it was a good reason. And not everyone has read the Michael Jackson books. There's not many people that have actually read them. A few people read Michael Jackson Speaks from Heaven Book 1, but a lot of people haven't followed on. But my message isn't for everyone. I'm not going to reach everyone, but you can imagine what we're talking about yesterday when I released songs to major artists in the world, and they released one of my songs. I'm going to get to speak to everyone in the world again. I'm going to have major artists in the world get inspired with my songs, and God's choosing, the Holy Spirit is choosing which artists, and there's certain artists that have got big reputations now, and they've got big reputations, and they've sold to Satan, and they do blood sacrifices, and they do all sorts of evil stuff with the Illuminati, and they do all this blood sacrifice and eating flesh and doing all sorts of stuff to maintain their position as a major artist. But when they're getting inspired, the Holy Spirit or I can still speak to them and give them a song. So I'm going to use their platform, even though they're serving Satan, many of them, to get their platform. I'm still going to use their platform to speak to the whole world.
I heard rumors about that.
Yeah, well, it's true when you look into it. But we won't focus on that. But Satan has a price. He comes and asks for your soul, and he promises you stardom. And so many of these stars reach stardom because they sold their soul. Some of them, like Billie Eilish, got stardom by herself, but to maintain it, she had to do contracts and sell her soul.
I have no comments.
Yeah, well, it's good not to comment. Chapter, verse, not chapter. Matthew's been doing another book with chapters, but these are questions. Question 13: Am I on the right path? What should I improve? So, before I answer that for you, what do you think that you're on the right path?
I'm not sure. I've just been battling with myself, so I don't know if I'm on the right path.
Okay, so
Because if you try to do something good, there's always an obstacle in the way. So I just don't even know if I'm on the right path.
yeah, that's part of life. Every time you're due to make a good step in the right direction, there's opposition, especially important steps. There's always opposition. It's one of the signs that you're going the right way is there's opposition that rises up. So just imagine it this way: if you want to go to a destination, you can't get there without going through red lights, like without red lights stopping you from time to time. No one can go on like a 10-mile trip through a city and get every green light. There's always going to be a red light, and you could wait and try and time it so you start your trip and get every green light, but it's just not going to work. And with life, there's stop and start signs, and there's uh, uh, construction works and detours, and there's all sorts of stuff when it comes to life. But you're on a right path in the fact that you've got a fundamental Christian faith, and one thing that you said before is you're very open and you're spiritual, which is a good thing. And Matthew has quite a number of books that you could really learn from. Matthew's got a book on the parables of Jesus, all the stories that Jesus told, and he's just finishing a book on the commandments of Jesus, which will be a 200-page book that explains all the 50 commands of Jesus. And so if you took the time and read those two books, and then over the next 2 to 5 years, try to change your life so you're actually obeying everything Jesus taught, that would be something that you could really improve. When you learn to obey Jesus like Matthew has over the last 20 years, when you learn to obey Jesus, you become a really loving, beautiful and accepting and forgiving sort of person. You become a really nice person to hang around, and a really good witness of Jesus, a really good witness of love. And the closer you get to God, the more that you obey Jesus, and the more you behave like Jesus taught, the more loving you become. And the love is really the answer to the whole world. You know, the world just needs more love, and if you had more love, you'd have less fear. If people were more in love with God and loved God more, there'd be no fear. There's a scripture in the Bible that says there's no fear in love. Perfect love casts out all fear. And so if people were more centered and more in love with Jesus and understood the love of Jesus and understand the love of God, there wouldn't be any fear in the world. If people truly loved God and revered God and respected God, that the pain and the suffering in the world would diminish, and the people who had the opportunity to change the world and opportunity to fix things that are wrong in the world, if they had more love, they'd do it. But they've got the opposite of love. They've got fear and they've got selfishness, and the whole world lives on this form of selfishness, look after number one sort of attitude, and everyone looks to themselves and looks to their own money, doesn't want to share their money, doesn't want to help people with their money, doesn't want to do anything with their money. And the whole West could solve the problems of the developing nations. They've got enough money to, but in order to do that, people would have to let go of their own money and stop being so selfish. And that doesn't happen. But how you can improve, how you should improve, I'd encourage you to read Matthew's book on the parables of Jesus and Matthew's book on the commandments of Jesus, and then grow closer to God in your personal relationship and allow the Holy Spirit's power to help you change yourself so that every decision that you make can be decided based on what Scripture says. And so when someone does something bad to you, rather than say to your friend, such and such did bad to me, and gossip, Scripture's commandments of Jesus says, turn the other cheek. In other words, if someone slaps you on the cheek, turn your other cheek so they can slap the other one. Scripture also says, pray for your enemies. Scripture also says, forgive your enemies. And Scripture also says, bless your enemies. So there's 4 responses that you could do to someone that hurts you that don't involve gossip. And when you're living the right way, you'll do those 4 responses and possibly have a positive response from the enemy than actually gossiping on them and your enemy finding out that you spoke out of school about them and harm their reputation. So that's what you should do to improve. You go to Amazon, find those 2 books and read those 2 books. And I promise you, it'll take you a few years for you to transform your life to be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm not into reading too much, but things like this, I like to read. I like to read spiritual books. I'm very into that.
Yeah. So have you got any other comments on what you've been thinking that you should improve? Have you got any things that need improvement that you can mention that I can speak into?
Not really. You said whatever. Well, actually, you answered my question, so I don't have any comments or questions.
So question 14 is, what do you think of today's music? So first of all, before I answer that, as Michael, first of all, I want to hear what you think of today's music. Do you think today's music has lost its soul? Do you think that there's not as much depth to today's music, or do you think that it's just talking about modern contemporary issues and is still the same as yesterday's music?
Well, I enjoy old school music, so compared to today's music, it's not the same. They're talking about sleeping with people in songs about love, and they're talking about being gangster, and that's pretty much it. There's no other meaning to any of the songs anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think personally, I think the quality of today's music isn't as good. They've got the same recording technicians and they've got the same technology. It's just that some of the messages aren't as good, but I can understand why certain hits are hits. Please bear in mind that Matthew really doesn't really listen to modern music, so it's hard for me to comment on modern songs and modern musicians because I can't use Matthew's intellect. But from my perspective, without Matthew knowing the music, I think that there could be a lot more feeling in the songs and deeper lyrics, and people could be more exposing in their lyrics and more honest in some of the things they're saying. But see, some of my songs were written 20 years ago and 30 years ago, and they're still hits today, and they play hits, but some of that music today I can't see enduring 30 years worth of popularity.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
When you just mentioned your songs, I was going to bring it up that the way you wrote your songs was just so whimsical to me. And the way that people write love songs today is not even actually love songs. It's just about you know what, and it's just nobody pays attention to the lyrics anymore. They're like if they read the lyrics instead of just enjoying the beat of the music, they would see that it's not what it's about. Like the way you write breakup songs, the way you write about, you know, how you love with someone, the way you write about, you know, being happy. Like I enjoy love songs about you, and let me other songs you write, and those are ones I gravitate to. They're just so magical in a way. Like I don't know how you just write your songs. It's just so mysterious.
Yeah. I I'm limited because of Matthew's thing, but the overall content, I don't think modern songs are going to have the longevity of the music that was around 20 or 30 years ago. It's like the music is like being factory produced today, and it lacks depth, and it lacks soul and transparency in it.
When I listen to your demos, I get so amazed by it, even if the work is not finished, because I can tell I just put so much work into it, and that's why I just like your music so much. Even if the song was not finished, and I always like your before and after songs. I don't know why. I just like the way you produce your music. Like I was listening to a lot of your demos from like the Dangerous era and like your like Float on the Dance Floor albums, and I'm just so blown away by all your demos. So I enjoy that more than anything your finished work.
Yeah. Well, I had a pretty we're talking beyond Matthew's scope and understanding, but I had a pretty regimented system that not so much computer music, not so much technically, but I worked creatively with my music and edited my music, and I had a really severe, sometimes too much judgment of my own work, and I was a perfectionist, and I wasn't happy unless it was perfect. So my songs went through transitions and growth, and they got better and better, and I listened to other people's opinions and took their advice, and created. In Heaven, we've got a database in Heaven. You would have read it in the other books if you'd read the other books, but there's a database in Heaven where everyone who listens to your music can log in and make comments on your songs and suggest changes. And in Heaven, all the musicians and the listeners write about your lyrics and suggest changes and stuff. And if they suggest chord changes and chord progressions and different lyrics and a different chorus, or a different not a different chorus, but a different verse or whatever. If you take on the board the changes of another musician or someone giving you advice or giving you corrections, if you take on 25% of the change, you can enter it in the competition again. So there's competitions every week in Heaven for the best song, and the top 5 songs that are voted by the public in Heaven get to play in the throne room, and the top 150 get recognized, and the top 150 songs every week get played more often in Heaven through the sound waves. But When you're above 150, it doesn't get played as much. But um, when you enter the competitions, you may get a song that's like 50th, and then some people suggest changes, or you make tweaks to it and changes yourself. And if you change 25% of your song's content, you can re-enter it into the competition. So if you do a major edit on your song and re-enter it, it might not come 50, it might come 5th, and you win in the top 5. So the whole of heaven collaborates together, and everyone's opinion and suggestions get considered. And you can sit down at your computer at the database and sit down for like an hour in heaven time, but it may last for like 2 weeks of time. And so you can make time shrink and expand in heaven. So you can sit down and read all the comments of all the people listening to your music and respond to all the comments, like on the database and on Facebook, for instance, like a Heaven's Fort of Facebook. And so everything is amazing in heaven, and you can change it. You have the quality of heaven's music is so much more. So when I came to heaven and I released, when I worked on my songs from earth and released them, people came in with suggestions for changes and stuff, and some of my songs I re-recorded and edited. So it's fabulous in heaven, and it would really be good if a database like that existed on earth, that each person could log in and suggest or give feedback and comments on people's songs, and artists could get back to you and say thank you for that comment. So the fans write in to the database in heaven and comment on your songs and give you encouragement. And I really like that lyric, and I really like what you said there. And it's really, you get to interact with your fans in heaven in a way that you can't really do it on earth.
Well, now I lost my train of thought. So when I also like your rehearsals a lot too, because I can see what work you put in before you perform in front of like thousands and maybe like millions of people. Because I just, like, when I saw the This Is It rehearsal, like Matthew, I think he did watch the movie. Like, I couldn't really finish it because I really wanted to see you in concert during that time. It's like 2008, I believe, and I saw you on TV. Like, that's the only memory I've had of you being alive, and I was really little. Not even little, I was about middle school when I was actually paying attention to you. I was like, wow, she took my mom because she was a huge fan of you around the same age I was. And I thought it'd be the perfect Mother's Day gift. It was around that time. And then unfortunately you passed away, so I couldn't see
Yeah,
your performance.
that's a shame, but
To see
it's a shame you didn't meet me and go to my concert when I was alive. But I'm here now, and you can ask me heaps of questions. And when it transfers from speaking through Matthew, and you can speak direct to me, we can speak for hours every day. You know, we can talk back and forth, and I can teach you as you read the book on the parables and the book on the commandments. I can speak to you about each chapter and explain each chapter, and you can read the Bible, and I can talk to you and give you commentary on each of the verses, so we can really grow in relationship and really interact with each other.
And I'm aware that you were like a person that read the Bible a lot in your interviews. Like, you said that you read a lot, and you read different religious books like the Quran or the just other religious books sort of similar to Christianity. Like, I'm sorry, you were like knowledgeable of the Bible in interviews.
Yeah, I was well read, and I studied everyone. I impressed with the humankind. I was impressed with human nature. I used to watch a lot of documentaries, and I used to read a lot of magazines, and I read a lot of information about all sorts of subjects. And Matthew read today that I had a few hour conversation with the Dalai Lama, and the person commented and said that was writing on the thing, said no one could talk to the Dalai Lama for a few hours. The Dalai Lama would shut them down if they were just talking about general stuff. But Michael had enough information to engage him for a couple of hours. So that was true. I had a lot of general knowledge, and I took the time to research humans and research different faiths. And I wanted to be able to, when I speak to someone out of Islam, I wanted to be able to speak about the tenets of their faith and the major foundations of their faith, and talk to them from their perspective. And then if they asked me about the perspective of the Bible or perspective of Jesus, I was able to give that because I understood where they were coming from. But if you don't take the time to study the other religion or the other faith, if you don't know where they're coming from, you can't really have an authentic conversation or a meaningful conversation.
And with white folks, they don't really take the time to understand like other people. Like they're saying, oh, this religion is false because X, Y, Z. Like, well, did you study why? You just can't say, oh, well, this is wrong. You need to have some sort of proof. Like, especially preachers. Like, I'm not saying all preachers do it, but if you're very knowledgeable about somebody else's religion, at least get the facts first before you start saying stuff.
Yeah. So Matthew has read the Quran once, and he found it very much like the Old Testament prophets, especially Isaiah. The Quran was said to have been given to Muhammad from the angel Gabriel, and Matthew has written a book, a 60-page book dictated by Gabriel, and it did sound like the Old Testament. It sounded like a prophet in the Old Testament, but when the Quran talked about anything about the divinity of Jesus, like the fact that Jesus was the son of Mary, and he was born of a virgin, and he was crucified, and he resurrected on the third day, anything about the authenticity of Jesus being real and really a son of God, the so-called entity that was dictating the book kept on getting angry and acting out in what they were saying, and so it was obvious it wasn't a godly angel that was talking, but anything to do with something important, which is crucial to the Christian faith, about Jesus or Mary. The angel or whatever the source was that was dictating the book was becoming a bit impatient and angry. And so that's how Matthew, besides knowing that the Apostle Paul said, if anyone brings you another gospel, even if it's from an angel, if it doesn't agree with the word of God and what I preach, well, don't accept it. So Matthew read it out of interest, but I can't say that Matthew has a good understanding of Islam and the tenets of the faith like I understood it. And Matthew's only met a person who believed in the Buddhist faith a couple of times, and he knows a little bit about Buddhism, but he hasn't studied it. And that would be part of if you're ever going to have a good effect on Islam or Buddhist or Hindu faith, part of religious studies or Bible college course would be understanding major portions of their faith and what they believe in. So in that aspect, Matthew really falls short in his understanding of other religions, but I was a lot more read and understood, and I could converse with any faith and strike a balance and strike rapport with them because they were surprised that I knew so much about what they believed in.
Yeah, like, and you also mentioned that you read the Bible a lot with your mother. So I'm not too surprised by knowledge. Like, so
Yeah,
my father's the same way. He studies the Bible like every day. Sometimes I kind of need a break because it's all he talks about. Because sometimes I feel like even though he worries about me going to heaven too, I feel like the way he teaches me is kind of just, no, not in good taste. Like, it's just putting more fear into me than wanting to.
is this your father? You're saying?
Yes, like
Yeah,
he, he's very grounded in the Bible. Like, he, just like you, started very young, and the way he teaches me in particular, I'm not really a fan of it. Like, he'll just say, well, if you do this, then God is going to blah 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 blah. Like, just try to use manipulative words to put fear in me to believe in God, even though I already do. Like, he's just saying, well, if you read the Bible, and he knows that I don't really read the Bible that much. I mean, what does that have to do with my faith in God? Like, as long as I have my faith in him, then it's just the way he teaches me. I'm just not a fan of it. It's just and then it makes me not want to read the Bible because he's just saying too many things that just doesn't sound very godly to make me listen to what he's saying.
yeah, yeah. I can understand that. So many people when they're Christians, they can be really into their faith and really into their religion, but sadly, you find it hard to share your faith and witness and be a good example to the people that are in your family and are close to you. Jesus said a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown and among his own family, which essentially means that a prophet, when he travels all over the place, people really honor him. But when he's home in his own hometown and among his own family, people don't honor him. That's because the prophet is known by their family and they know all his faults and they know that he overeats or they know that he doesn't exercise or he's got a bad temper or something. And they know all the personal details about the prophet, so they don't really honor him. They can't see the miraculous in him because they don't expect the miraculous because they know all his faults. So oftentimes families and relations have hard times sharing biblical truths, and it could be that he's your father that you might accept the same biblical truths coming through Matthew because he's not in a position to tell you what to do, and he's not an authority figure in your life. And he could come along and say the same thing as your father, but say it in a different way where you'd accept it because he's not an authority figure. And so sometimes Matthew has visited a church and he's been talking to a guy, and the guy has said, "That's so profound, that's amazing." And the guy's wife said to him, "I've been telling you that for years. Why didn't you listen to me?" And he wasn't listening.
That's what my father says.
Yeah, he wasn't listening to his wife, but he listened to me. He listened to Matthew when Matthew talked to him. And it's just a fact about families and close relations and people that know you well. You don't place much respect in what they have to say.
I mean, I know he has good intentions for what he says and what he says, but the way he says things, like, he always has to be right whenever we have Bible discussions about God. And it just makes me shut my ears off because it's either that or it's something else.
Yeah. I
And like sometimes I feel like this is what, like, sometimes I can even connect with my father without me talking about God. And like, I don't want to have a scriptural conversation just to talk to my father. Like, why can't we have a more, like, you know, because then it makes me feel out of place. I don't know. It's just not that I'm disrespecting God or anything, but it's just the way he does it. Like, my whole entire family's like that.
Yeah. So he doesn't talk to you about other things besides the Bible.
Right.
Yeah, that would get a bit annoying.
Yeah. And I know he has good intentions, but it's like I don't have that much knowledge about it as much as he does. So it's just like he expects me to know more. And then he's like, well, why don't you just read the Bible? And like it's not easy as you think. Like it's just I've been wanting to express it to him, but he doesn't really listen. Like he hears what I'm saying, but he doesn't really listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah. I had to go into my room to plug in the computer. My computer the battery only lasts for about an hour now. It used to last for 3 hours, but
It's what drains your battery, so that's why I'm using my iPad.
yeah. Yeah. I've plugged in my battery now. Yeah, so there we go. I'm looking at you now. I had the questions up before, so that's the thing with family. Sometimes we know them too well, and you know all your father's habits, and you know all his shortfalls, and you know that he may preach that Jesus is the answer, but he doesn't act like the answer. He seems like a hypocrite in the things he says and the things he does, because you know all those things. Someone else in his church don't see him every day, and they don't know that he's a hypocrite in those things. And that's the problem with family and being able to express. But here I am, part of your life, and I'm suggesting two of Matthew's best books, and you'll take the time and read them chapter by chapter, because I suggested it and you said, what should I do with my life? And that was my answer. And that's basically Matthew's answer for everyone. But that's why he's taken the time to write the books. But I'm really enjoying talking to you, and it seems that the questions are a good thing for the book, but it's a good springboard into conversation.
And it's like, I'm not like being a Debbie Downer about my dad. We have a good relationship, like most people, hopefully. But it's just the way he like does, like he's just like Mike, like as he grew up, like Michael, they're Jehovah's Witnesses, they're strictly thought to be Christian. So the household he lived in was very strict. So it's just a routine that he just kept up all his life. Not that he's strict with me or anything. I'm just saying, like, every single discussion is about the Bible. Like, why can I have a close relationship with you as a father?
Yeah. It's,
even like I said, I'm not disrespecting God or anything. It's just that that's all he ever talks about. He's like, I'm worried about your soul. I have to pray for you. I have to do this, I have to do that. I'm like, it could just be so overwhelming. It's like I have a pastor in my house, and I'm pretty sure other children that are related to pastors probably feel the same way. Like they just can't do anything without being perfect, you know?
Yeah. Well, have you talked to your dad and said you've been talking to Michael Jackson, or you wouldn't break that subject?
Freak out and be like, you know, because I just keep all this stuff to myself.
Yeah.
And I told Michael, whatever is between you and me is between you and me. And even like I don't always felt like I respect him as a person, so I just don't feel like everything needs to be discussed, you know?
Yeah. So I really this is Michael. I really appreciate being your friend and we'll close the video off any time from now. It's an hour, but which is, but it doesn't matter. Each chapter is a certain length, but we can talk for another 10 minutes or another half an hour, depending on what do you want to go to the next question, or do you want to continue, or do you just want to chat, or do you want to go and just chat to me off the video and keep on chatting to Michael like off of the recording?
We can do the next question.
Right. So question 15 was the Escape album, when the Escape album came out, did you listen to it? And the answer is yes, I do. I did listen to it, and I wasn't happy with it. It wasn't produced to the level that all my other videos, other recordings were produced to, and I wasn't so happy about it. But I guess it raised money for people, and they were happy with releasing that. So because I'm a perfectionist, if stuff isn't to a really high quality, it makes me upset. It makes any perfectionist upset.
Can I don't know if Matthew's aware, but can I show him the album so that he has some knowledge about it?
Yeah.
So this is the album that, oops, the camera kind of sucks on my end. But this is the album he's talking about.
Right.
Like, I always wanted to know if he was like happy or not happy with it. I wasn't, like, in my opinion, I didn't feel like it was Michael's work either. Like, I felt like he would have put more heart into it. It was just the Cash Grab album. And this one is the demo version. If you don't mind, can I play one of the songs?
People we'll finish here, and we'll go on to the next questions in the next video. You can play it to me offline, but the people in the book can't hear the song, you know.
Oh yeah.
So we'll just close off the video recording now.